Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into what is honestly one of the biggest game changers in modern JavaScript, the move from those messy promise chains to the super clean, super elegant syntax of async and await. We're about to see how this one change can totally revolutionize your asynchronous code. So, have you ever found yourself deep inside a JavaScript file just staring at this long, winding chain of dot bands and dot catches, and you just think, what am I even looking at? You're trying to fetch some data, then you process it, then you update something on the screen, and it just gets complicated fast. If that sounds familiar, trust me, you are not alone.
All right, so here's the plan for today. First, we're going to lay the foundation and talk about what a promise actually is. Then we'll look at the old way of doing things, the challenge of the dot-then chain. After that, the good part, the breakthrough with async and await. We'll do a direct before and after comparison so you can see the magic, and then we'll wrap it all up with why this is so important for you.
Okay, first things first. Before we can really appreciate the solution, we've got to understand the problem. And that starts with the fundamental building block of pretty much all modern async operations in JavaScript, the promise.
So what on earth is a promise? Well, think of it like an IOU. It's a placeholder. When you kick off an operation that's going to take some time, like fetching data from an API, JavaScript doesn't just freeze. Instead, it immediately hands you back this promise object. It's basically a guarantee that says, hey, I'm working on it, and I promise I'll get back to you eventually, with either the data you asked for or an error if something went wrong.
And every single promise goes on a little journey through three possible states. It always starts out as pending. That's when it's still doing its thing. From there, it can only go one of two ways. Either it becomes fulfilled, which is awesome, that means we got our data, or it gets rejected, meaning something went wrong. And the key here is, once it's fulfilled or rejected, that's it. Its state is locked in forever. Okay, so we have these promises. How did we used to handle the results? Well, we used what's called the dot-then chain. And look, it works, but it came with its own set of problems, especially when it came to just reading the code. Right, so how do you actually get the good stuff, the data, out of a promise that was fulfilled? Simple. You use the dot-then method. You basically attach a function to it, and that function will only ever run after the promise succeeds. And when it does, it gets the data handed to it. So here's the complete toolkit for dealing with any outcome. If the promise is successful, the code inside dot-then runs. If it fails, the program jumps down to the dot-catch block to handle the error. And then there's dot-finally, which is like the cleanup crew. It runs no matter what, success or failure. Now, this is where the trouble really starts. What if you need to do multiple things one after another? Like first, you fetch some user data. Then, using that data, you fetch their recent posts. Then, using those posts, you fetch the comments. You end up chaining one dot-then after another, creating this nested pyramid of code that can be a real headache to follow. But thankfully, there is a much, much better way. And this brings us to the big breakthrough. Let's talk about async and await, two little keywords that were literally designed to make working with promises so much simpler and more intuitive. It all begins with the async keyword. When you stick this one word in front of a function, you're basically telling JavaScript two very important things. First, this function is now guaranteed to return a promise. And second, and this is the important part, you can now use the await keyword inside of it. And await is the real magic here. You put this keyword in front of anything that returns a promise, and it does something incredible. It literally pauses your function right on that line. It just waits for the promise to finish, and then it unwraps the value for you, nice and clean. All of a sudden, your asynchronous code reads just like regular synchronous code. No more dot-then callbacks. So you might be thinking, okay, if there's no dot-then, what happens to dot-catch? And this is another huge win for readability. We get to use a tool we already know and love from synchronous code, the good old try-catch block. You just wrap your await calls in a try block, and if anything goes wrong, you handle it in the catch block. It's just so clean and consistent. All right, theory is great, but seeing is believing, right? Let's put these two approaches side by side. I want you to really see the transformation that async await brings to the table. Okay, just look at this. On the left, we've got the classic dot-then and dot-catch way. It's fine, it works, but notice the callback functions, the nesting, your logic gets split up. Now, look at the right. The async await version is just so much cleaner, isn't it? It reads like a simple story from top to bottom. Try to get the data. If that works, log it. If something goes wrong, catch the error. That one line, const data equals await fetch data,
does all the heavy lifting of waiting and unwrapping the value. It feels like normal code. It's linear, it's logical, and it's just so much easier on your brain.
So why do we care so much about this? It's not just about making our code look a little prettier. It's really about writing code that is fundamentally better. It's easier to understand, easier to debug, and way easier for you and your team to maintain in the long run. So let's just quickly recap the big wins here. Number 1, readability. Your code reads like a set of simple, top-to-bottom instructions. 2, simplicity. It just looks and feels like normal, synchronous code, which makes it easier to reason about. 3, error handling. You use the same try-catch you use everywhere else, which is fantastic. And all of this rolls up into the most important benefit. Your code is just way, way easier to maintain and debug down the road. I love this quote because it just nails it. It's so important to remember that async await isn't some brand new system. It's what we call syntactic sugar. It's just a beautiful, clean layer built right on top of the powerful promise system that was already there. It doesn't replace promises, it just makes working with them an absolute joy.
And really, that's the whole story. We've seen how async/await can take the chaos of asynchronous JavaScript and make it calm and orderly. So the final question isn't for me, it's for you. Now that you have this incredible tool in your toolbox for writing cleaner, more readable, and more maintainable code, what amazing things are you going to go build next?